once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you find me. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly over the rainbow. Why then, oh why can't I? Happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow. Why, oh, why can't I?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this ceremony to celebrate the life of Sue Mount, who was 83 when she died. My name's Christine Howard, and I'd like to welcome you today on behalf of Sue's family. Her husband Tony, their sons and their partners, Richard and Marilyn, Steve and Karen, and Chris and Kirsty, and Caroline, the daughter Sue never had, 12 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren, and all the other members of her family. Grandson Tom is not able to be here today, but he's certainly with us in spirit. Following this ceremony, you're all invited most warmly to join the family for refreshments in the reception area. And in Sue's memory, please consider making a gift to the Salvation Army. There's a donation box in the foyer. There are many people who've been part of Sue's life, and all the members of her family are grateful for the love and friendship shown to her and to them. We are all concerned, directly or indirectly, with the death of any individual, for we are all members of one human community. Though some of the links between us are strong and some are tenuous, each of us is joined to all the others by links of kinship, love, or friendship, by living in the same neighbourhood or town or country, or simply by our common humanity. So let us live well today, for today is what we have been given. Let us aim to live all our days with courage and thankfulness, so that we may leave this world with hope. For as long as there is life, there is hope. And where there is living hope, tended and protected by a loving community, despair cannot triumph. And so today, as we celebrate Sue's life, we consider what she has left us. As well as our memories of her, Sue also leaves us with a memory of a life well lived. If we are to honour her memory, we would all do well to remember that while she is not here to make the world a better place, we can act on her behalf. We can choose to see what we need to change within ourselves so that we can be the best that we can be. We can choose to be better stewards for the world and take greater care of each other. We're here to grow through an ending into a beginning, to let go of Sue, and with memories gathered for the journey, gain strength for moving through the days ahead without her. Right now, most of us have a heightened sense of what is precious and what is true. There is potential for connecting, for truth-telling and reconciling. So this time together today is a time when we gather not only to remember Sue, but also to remember the bonds between and amongst us. A reading from Edward Seal. The best tribute we pay to a loved one when she dies is to honestly remember her for the person she was. This is to say about her, yes, you were your own person. You were unique. How you chose to live your life was not without consequences. You mattered. You made a difference for your community and your family. Now that your life has ended, we honour the life you chose to live, in all its sparkle and all its shadows. We celebrate your uniqueness, and we freely give you our love because you loved us too. Some words from Winston Churchill. Let us be contented with what has happened and be thankful for all that we have been spared. Let us accept the natural order of things in which we move. Let us reconcile ourselves to the mysterious rhythm of our destinies, such as they must be in this world of space and time. Let us treasure our joys, but not bewail our sorrows. The glory of light cannot exist without shadows. Life is a whole, and good and ill must be accepted together. The journey has been enjoyable and well worth making. In the tragedy Hamlet, the young prince ponders aloud to his friend Horatio on the topic of death. There is special providence in the fall of a sparrow. Says Hamlet, if it be now, 'tis not to come. If it be not to come, it will be now. If it be not now, yet it will come. The readiness is all. Shakespeare reminds us that we don't have a lot of control over how or when we die. Where we do have some say, however, is in how we live. Our readiness is less a readiness to die than a readiness to live fully and meaningfully. That way we are more ready for death, so that when it does come, we will be remembered well. And Sue was a woman to be remembered well. A lively, organised and adventurous woman, Sue was determined, courageous, resilient, and always interested in the world around her. She was a complex woman, outwardly sociable, but inwardly shy and reserved, competitive yet gracious in defeat. Her habit of sharing cheeky banter with most people she met was an endearing quality. She was a tomboy, fit and sporty, took care with her appearance and was always appropriately dressed and groomed. Sue played fair, did her best, and that meant everything she did well. She was intelligent, a community activist who made things happen. Sue's English and Scottish heritages were a major influence, but her heart was in Australia, and she was committed to the life she and Tony made here. She was a lifelong learner, valued education for her sons, and was articulate and clear in her opinions. While she assumed leadership roles if necessary, Sue was more comfortable in the middle ranks, where she could enable and encourage others without seeking the limelight. She made the most of all the opportunities life presented to her. Sue was born in London, within the sound of Bow Bells, though Cockney she was not. She was the youngest of 3 children from Malcolm and Helen. By the time Sue started school, her father had left the marriage and her mother had moved with her children to South Australia to escape the war. Sue was educated at St Peter's Woodlands Grammar School in Adelaide, then at Bedford High School, and finally for finishing at Princess Helena College in England. One adventurous school holiday at 16 was being driven in a London cab across the Sahara Desert, as you do. After the family returned to Australia, specifically to Canberra, Sue met Tony, and their strong and enduring partnership sustained them both. They were married in 1956, and family homes were in Medina, Lewisham, Melbourne and Taroona, the latter location for 58 years. Sue and Tony were a great team for more than 60 years, shared the chores and the good times, and their children have great memories of a home where they and their friends felt welcomed and valued. After rearing 3 busy boys, Sue did a librarianship course and finished her psychology degree, which equipped her well for all her community activities, especially her full and then part-time employment as a teacher librarian. Sue and Tony were always interested and involved in the lives of their children. Christmas and birthdays were celebrated with the family together and good enough food, the family mantra being eating to live. Family holidays included trips to the UK, Europe, Mexico, Canada and Alaska, plus countless orienteering locations in Australia. Together, the family built a shack on Bruny Island. This was a wonderfully unifying project, still remembered with affection. Sue's life was always busy and productive and included orienteering, tennis, skiing, bushwalking, running, cubs, book club, wine bottling, U3A, community library, and playing a variety of games, especially Racing Demon and Animal Snap. A highlight of the last 4 years has been the daily parade of Taroona School students walking past Sue's front window. Mutual animated waving brought pleasure to Sue and to the children, who considered her to be their adopted grandmother. They knew what sort of a day she was having by the level of her animation, and the weather controlled the presence or otherwise of her gloves. As her health declined, Sue's family gathered around to help in any way they could. Sue faced her own mortality, as we all hope we will, with realism, courage, and that strong and determined spirit. All our lives have been enriched because she has lived, and she deserves the best farewell that we can give her. And now we're going to celebrate Sue's life in verse, written by Tony with great love. And I'm going to read the first 4 verses. Just over 80 years ago, near Bow Bells, Sue was born. Both Cockney and a Scottish babe that monumental morn. Dad Lyon's job took him and Mum to countries far away. So Sue spent first 4 happy years with Nanny every day. The World War threat saw Dad join up, so Helen sailed abroad. Real Mum at last, with Sue and Liz and Malcolm all aboard. The World War seemed so far away from sunny Oz, sunburnt land. For 10 warm years, Sue's mum kept safe her seaside family band. There Sue made friends with Burden girls and went to Woodland School. Except some Mondays she stayed home. Mum let her play it cool. Back all sailed to cold UK. To boarding school Sue went. By long train trip then boat to Mull her holidays were spent. Plus 1 great trans-Sahara drive through sand and salty plain, then Marseille back to Paris in a soldier-crowded train. Sue went to Princess Helena to study, play and teach, then Loftus Street in Canberra, within this student's reach.
Wow. There I met Sue. We fell in love, and one night danced away. My failing forest tests next morn was tiny price to pay. In Adelaide we tied the knot, then off to Tassie went, and in Medina's town, our next 4 years were spent. One night, Sue sat upon my lap, just as her waters broke. My open briefcase caught the lot. Was that a lucky stroke? When we were bringing Richard home, our digger dog refused to even look at him, by jealousy confused. But Digger wasn't worried when Babe Stephen did appear. Beach shack was built at Lewisham. Beach shack we'd built at Lewisham was home for our next year. In 62, we toured all day to find Taroona Place. Then Christopher turned up in time to join the human race. Late 63, we built the flat, and Donald, that's my father, came to stay. Then all but he in 66 sailed off to old UK. We stayed with Liz and Roger and sent Rich and Steve to school, which they hated. Then stormy sail across North Sea to snowy slopes to cool.
Through Europe down to Portugal, where Steve was shooed away, then dodging Paris, back again to family in UK. We made £1 on sale of van, so achieved our plan. Then school again in Mexico, where we first met our gran. Just after Hobart bushfire, we boys were sent to friends. Then Betty came and Donald died. They'd never made amends. Up Jacob's Ladder, zigzag track, with our new snow chains on, we built a ski lodge on the Ben with Peter, Bert and John.
Late 71, our family moved. 3 years in Melbourne spent. There Sue researched, washed up, sold ads, kept sheltered folk content. Sue overtook Olympic Herb at orienteering show that taught us map and compass tricks and which way we should go. Then back to Tas, Sue's library course she taught in many schools and wrote a special booklet all about safe use of tools. We boys grew up and left and wed 3 extra special dames to start careers and grandchildren and build our family's fames.
Half marathon at 50, Olympic torch at 64. A man asked Sue to marry him on strange Alaskan shore. For 40 years she orienteered in age-class Aussie teams, and so now the room she ironed in has drawers full of her dreams. Sue organised book reading groups for more than 50 years. She made first family walking groups and last library for her peers. When she retired, she straight away enrolled in U3A, and next year Tony followed her, and he's still there today.
Now family and friends are here to celebrate Sue's spell of bringing up and feeding the 3 children she made well, of caring for them every day, then letting them go free when they were old enough to know just what they want to be. Sue knew her lads had chosen well, their lives, their loves, their kin. She knew that they will help protect the world we all live in. We've marked her in our memories as woman much adored. Our tales of Susan Lyon Mount are very fondly stored. Well done, author. And now we're going to hear some skiing and orienting memories from Sally and Tessa, and then Sally. Their words will be followed by a photo montage with some music, and then we're going to have some poetry from Richard. Sally and Tessa.
Hi, we're Sally and Tessa from the Lawrence family. We grew up with the Mount family because our dad worked with Tony and Sue liked skiing. I remember Sue telling me not that long ago that she had just wanted to live somewhere where she could go skiing, and so they worked out that Tasmania would be the place. Tony had made a pair of skis for Sue when he was wooing her in Canberra. He made them in a press that belonged to a forester there, and it did the trick, and they got married and moved to Tassie. This may have determined my family's destiny, as our dad saw Sue's skis and the possibility of a way that he could afford skis for his family. He took measurements from Sue's skis and then created his own ski press and made at least 33 pairs of skis for us. So Sue and Tony and their family joined my mum and dad, Jasmine and Peter Lawrence, up on Ben Lomond at the Championship Lodge, or otherwise known as Ben Bullen. They had secured a 14-bed lodge for the school holidays, but they had to fill it if they wanted to restrict the visitors to people that they knew. So there were several families involved, us Lawrences, the Mounts, the Burgesses, the Witts, the Wallaces, and anyone else they could find who persuade to come up. It wasn't really all that attractive. You had to drive to Carvilla, walk for 2.5 miles, starting with a track up a scree slope, and then across the plateau to the hut. There were no ski lifts for the first 4 years that we went to Ben Lomond, but we kept coming back. The first year was 1961, when Stephen was 18 months old. Sue carried him up in a backpack, just an ordinary A-frame backpack, not one designed to carry children. With Tony carrying Richard, we figured that must have what happened, because we weren't sure what happened. Richard, he was up there, so he was only about 3, so presumably he got carried. But they walked up, and it was dreadful weather, appalling weather. They arrived at the hut absolutely exhausted, and Tony remembers Sue being revived with a whiskey. My youngest brother and sister, Rosie and Simon, were also about 18 months old, and in the days before disposable nappies, Sue and Jasmine tried various ways of trying to get these thick cloth nappies clean and dry. Hanging them up on a line didn't always work, and when they froze, we would hear them rattling in the wind. Tony tells me they were bashing against the hut. The main room of the lodge was very small, 4.5 by 5.5 metres, with bunk beds around the sides. We had a kitchen in the corner with a gas stove and an oven and a sink. And I found out it did have a cold water tap. I wasn't sure about that. There was a table in the middle where we ate our meals, played cards and other games, put plaster on broken legs, and invited some visitors to sleep. The Wallaces actually slept on the table. There was a coke fire that had to be refilled twice a day. The walls and the floor were always wet. Evening entertainment was singing and card playing. Sue was a very competitive Racing Demon player, hurling abuse at anyone who beat her to place the next card on the stack. And Andrew was also competitive, and one night he and Sue continued the game in their sleep, both calling out to each other. We sang songs to an accordion, and Sue enjoyed singing right up to the end, when she sang with us when we went to visit her 5 days before she died.
Four of the families decided to build their own lodge on Ben Lomond when sites became available after the road Jacob's Ladder was built. They named it Foresters because they all worked for the Forestry Commission at the time. Foundations were put in the early 1968, and we lived in the canvas city for the summer of 68-69, which was built of tents, and built the first lodge there.
So the younger children remember being sent off to bed in the evenings and being told to be quiet. Sue was very good at bossing all the children. The adults would then play really noisy games like Racing Demon downstairs, yelling and screeching into the night. That was a memory from my younger brother Simon. Foresters have carried on this tradition with the next generations, sending the children to bed and then making a noise downstairs. Sue skied downhill initially and then changed to cross-country, exploring all over the mountain with Tony and others. Sue has been a large part of the Lawrence family's life, and some other memories my family have of Sue. Tess is going to.
Yeah, My mum and Sue used to swim at Dixon's Beach at sunrise, communicating with each other through a phone call, 3 rings to let you know that we were going swimming that day. I remember washing up Chris's baby bottles in the sink at Meath Avenue to get my brownie washing up badge, as Sue was my brown owl.
Another one is Andrew spent a week in their lounge room with a broken leg, being looked after by Sue, while the rest of his family stayed on Ben Lomond. We also have a story of my brother Tim building his canoe in their lounge room. No one can quite remember why, and I've actually heard from Tim and he can't remember why either. But Tim had another memory of Sue, that he was introduced to a glass of milk with a big pile of Cadbury's drinking chocolate heaped on the top, and you ate it with a spoon. He says he still has that and thinks of Sue. Another one that I've just thought of that I'd forgotten about, Dan, was on Christmas Day. We used to go down, meet the Mounts down at the Oval at the Taroona High School or Taroona Primary School, and we used to play softball on Christmas afternoon. So the Lawrences will always remember Sue with great fondness, and we thank her for her desire to ski all those years ago, because it just may have influenced the direction of our lives. Thank you.
I would be accompanied by music. 44 years ago, Sue decided to buy Tony a birthday present for his 43rd birthday, a 6-week course learning how to orienteer. She has been quoted as saying it's the only present he ever used. She did the course as well, and their lives have never been the same since. When I was thinking what to say today, I asked a few people what their memories were of Sue. Every single person was full of superlatives. Cheerful, vibrant, inspirational, a role model, adventurous, influential, so much fun, so many good times, a force to be reckoned with, brave, fearless, courageous, a talented sportswoman, the list goes on and on. I go back to the very beginning of orienteering with Sue, and I can vouch for all those adjectives, particularly her humour. I recall a so-called rest day when we were attending a multi-day event near Wilpena Pound. We decided to climb St Mary's Peak. And at the top, Tony said we could take a shortcut straight down the mountain to the Pound, instead of taking the circuitous track back. He'd done it before and it was easy. What he neglected to tell us was that he was 20 years old at the time, some 30 years previously. And it turned out that we were faced with a series of cliff faces about 2 metres drop all the way down. At one point I looked at Sue, who was hanging upside down on one of the cliffs with her nose pressed against a rock, and a quiet voice announcing, "One thing about Tony's shortcuts, you get a real close-up look at nature." Another adventure I recall with Sue was when we were partners in a long-distance orienteering event held in the Central Highlands. We were required to carry emergency food and clothing, so we trotted across the plateau with our trusty H-frame packs jiggling on our backs. At one point, our route took us across a very long, narrow lake, so we were mindful to aim off to the southern tip in order to get around it. So, inevitably, we managed to hit the lake bang smack in the middle. As we pondered whether to go 500 metres to the south or 500 metres to the north in order to get around, a certain well-known orienteering photographer was perched on a rock on the opposite side of the lake. "It's okay," called, "everyone's crossing here, it's not deep." Well, it wasn't very wide, 10, 15 metres perhaps, so we looked at each other and shrugged, why not? And Sue plunged in. Well, I guess the water wasn't that deep, maybe a metre, but what he had neglected to tell us was that there was about the same depth of soft mud under the water. And he happily snapped away as Sue was rapidly disappearing out of sight. I don't think she's ever forgiven him. We made it to the other side and continued jogging across the plain, and I heard this strange sloshing sort of noise coming from her direction. So I asked if she was okay, and she did a very strange thing. She made a very deep bow, and as she did so, streams of water poured out of the frame of the pack. "Oh, great," she said. "A shower to wash off the mud, just what I need." Sue is mostly remembered by us as her role as membership officer, which she took very seriously, possibly, one might say, even fiercely. One newcomer arrived at his second event. The rain was sleeting down horizontally as he got out of his car, and he decided this was not for him. As he beat a hasty retreat to his car, he was too late. He had been spotted and told in no uncertain terms, "Piking is not allowed." It can't have done him much harm because he ended up as club president and a whole lot of other things as well. So many people spoke of how much Sue had cared for them when they first began, and all our newcomers. One said she was extremely shy and knew no one, and it was Sue's help and encouragement that cheered her on. And she ended up president of Orienteering Tasmania. So we can see Sue's influence everywhere. I think I'm right in saying that it has been largely due to Sue's efforts that our club has grown in strength, from strength to strength over the years. In the early 1990s, Sue came up with the idea of having a women's only weekend. Men were detailed to stay at home with the kids. And we spent a fun-filled weekend refining our skills at Bronte Park. It was such a great success that many, many more have been held since. She was also influential in getting good courses for older people. Although mentally able to navigate well, older orienteers often found it physically difficult to climb fences, slide down rock faces, push through thick forest, and so on. One of our senior course setters told me that when she sets courses, even now, she always considers the Sue factor. Sue was also very strong on the social side of things. We were never allowed to just run our course, hop in the car and drive home. Picnic lunches were a must, and we were met with an inquisition if we did not stay after our event. I was looking at old orienteering photos this week, and it's remarkable how many featured Sue clutching a glass of champagne. I think we might have to schedule in a chicken and champagne picnic on our program soon in honour of Sue. But please don't think that Sue was only a social butterfly. She was fiercely competitive. I'm 10 years younger than Sue, so in theory, I should have been able to beat her, but that didn't always happen, and boy, did I get to hear about it. It was pointed out to one orienteer that she had beaten the legendary Sue Mount one day. Her reply, "That was only a street event. I'll only be impressed if I beat her in the bush," and I never did. Her skills in an orienteer were paramount. I have here, these are Sue's badges and medals that she has gathered over 44 years. And in here, 108 certificates won on the field of orienteering. So I'll just mention the most outstanding. Sue represented Australia against New Zealand 11 times. She won the National Long Distance Championships 10 times, National Middle Distance Championships 3 times, and the National Sprint Championships once. She won the National Easter 3-day Championships 15 times and the Oceania Championships twice. I feel exhausted just reading the list. However, Sue said that none of the wins was as good as the friends she made and the places she had seen through orienteering. Her legacy lives on. Thank you.
As I stand before you on the occasion of a funeral, I, Richard Elliott Mount, honour my mother, Flora Susan Elliott Lyon Mount, for the personal qualities I see in her. I'm attempting to look beyond her role as my mother to see the person who was Sue, and it was great to hear some of those other qualities from the earlier speakers. So the personal qualities I honour are her courage to fashion a new life that was so different to her own early life. I honour her striving to learn how to do things better throughout her life. I honour her wonderful mothering, particularly of us as younger children. I honour her fierceness to protect her own and to challenge injustice where she saw it. I honour her self-belief to initiate and do the things she considered important or useful. I honour her generosity and commitment to those less fortunate and to the ideals of community, such as doing things together for the common good. I honour her skill and humour while negotiating, cooperating, contributing, carrying along others. And I honour her energy and enthusiasm to be one of those who showed up for life. Overall, Sue, I honour your deep determination to live a good, full life. And this was no small thing. This is no small thing. Sue, in this, as in many other things, you succeeded. One of Sue's other qualities was a practical philosophy towards life itself. And I'm going to read you a poem by Ian Guthridge that she asked to be read at her funeral. Many years ago she asked us to read, she set it aside, read this at the funeral. It reflects her philosophy to life and to death. I believe in this life, not the next life, in living life to the full, as long as I have it, for we have but one life, and we must use it and enjoy it and help others to enjoy it, bearing our burdens as best we can and sharing one another's burdens, seeing ourselves as part of the great cycle, grains of sand on a mighty seashore, pinpoints of light in a star-filled sky, fleeting moments in the flow of eternal consciousness in which we live and move and have our being. Grateful to have life as long as it lasts, but accepting sickness as well as health, death as well as life. And when it is time for me to return to the earth I came from, dust to dust, ashes to ashes, letting go, leaving room for my children, my children's children, and my children's children's children, my descent, my decline, their ascent, my exit, their entry, my sunset, their dawn, and may they live and laugh and love as we have and more. Thank you.
With understandable sorrow, but with spirits lifted by our fond memories and our hope, we put aside our sadness at parting and any regrets for things that were said and done, or left unsaid, or left undone. Only our love remains. To love someone always carries the risk of parting, but not to love is not to have truly lived at all. So let us all be strong in the conviction that in spite of death, the scheme of life is ultimately good. Let us aim to leave this ceremony determined to live through the loss and the grief to an even more abundant life. We pause to gather our feelings and our thoughts, and we remember how Sue touched our lives, and in our own hearts we each say our farewell. If you're able to, would you please stand for the words of committal? We commit the body of Sue to the elements. We are glad she lived, that we saw her face, knew her friendship, and walked the way of life with her. We deeply cherish the memory of her words, her deeds, her character. We leave our dead in peace. With respect, we bid her farewell. In love, we remember her companionship and her ways. And thinking of her in this manner, let us go in quietness of spirit and live in harmony with each other. A final blessing, a Gaelic blessing. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the gentle night to you. Moon and stars pour their healing light on you. Deep peace of the world to you.
Anytime you're Lambeth way, any evening, any day, you'll find us all doing the Lambeth walk. Oi! Every little Lambeth gal with her little Lambeth pal, you'll find them all doing the Lambeth walk. Oi! Everything free and easy, do as you darn well pleasing. Why don't you make your way there? Go there, stay there. Once you get down Lambeth way, every evening, every day, you'll find yourself doing the Lambeth walk. Oi! anytime you're